Alright guys, so I'm back with another video. Today I'm coming out with an apparently highly anticipated sequel to one of my older videos, What If Disney Had a Smash Bros? I guess this video is rather appropriate too, as last time Multiversus was trending and now Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is back. And may I say, that game looks amazing. Not to mention that it's Disney's 100th anniversary year, a huge milestone for this gigantic company. Anyway, I'll definitely strive to make this video longer than the last one. To help with that, I'll be adding a whopping 50 new characters to this hypothetical game, along with discussing 25 new stages. Disney is a massive brand, filled with so many iconic and vibrant characters along with their stunning stories, so a fighting game would definitely make many happy. If any characters that you want here aren't on the list, maybe go and check out the previous video, they're probably there. Well, without further ado, here's What If Disney Had a Smash Bros. Part 2. Like the other video, I'll be splitting these characters up into groups, namely Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and of course miscellaneous. The amount of characters in this group will also vary due to their importance to the company, with Disney obviously the most important, having 18, Pixar having 12, both Marvel and Star Wars bearing 7, and lastly miscellaneous only containing 6. The stages will also be set up this way, but we'll get to that later. The first company that I'll be discussing is Disney, the main company that's starting it all. For the first newcomers, I feel that the Fab Five should be completed, adding both Minnie and Pluto. Both of these characters are highly recognizable, and it would just feel right to have them both in. I would also like to add the antagonist Egghead Pete, who is also fairly popular. Lastly, for the Mickey Mouse crew, I'd also like to introduce Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Mickey's successor who was originally part of Universal. For those who don't know the story, Oswald was basically taken from Walt, leading to the creation of Mickey. However, Disney recently took back the rights, with him now appearing in parks and whatnot. Oswald is probably my favorite out of Mickey's crew, and with the amount of love Disney has been giving him recently for their 100th anniversary, I believe he deserves a spot in this imaginary game. Now it's time for some of the classic characters, which I would classify as anything before The Little Mermaid. And of these, I believe that Winnie the Pooh, Pinocchio, and Cinderella's are great choices, merely due to their recognizability and the fact that I don't really know a lot about classic Disney. Pooh Bear could use his fun little items seen throughout his film, including his honey and the hallucination of elephants. The rest are simply chosen because people would know them, but surely they could have interesting movesets as well. Renaissance is next, which would likely be classified as anything from The Little Mermaid to Tarzan. These movies are arguably more popular than the classic ones, and these are also the ones that I personally enjoy the most. As for the picks, after reading some comments, I ultimately decided on Mulan, an interesting fighter, Hercules, who could play similar to people like Captain Falcon in Smash Bros, Jack Skellington due to his popularity and how interesting he could be, and finally the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, who could also use help from his item friends, who seem to be pretty great at fighting during the castle raid. This spot could also go to Belle as well. Apparently, I classified the post-Renaissance wrong last time, sorry folks. What I meant last time, and now this time, is everything after the Renaissance area. And for this category, I'm going to be going with Isabella from Encanto, Maui from Moana, Rapunzel from Tangled, and finally Wreck-It Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph. Isabella was chosen due to how big of a hit Encanto was, with it still being high on the trending list on Disney+, even over a year after its release. Moana was also a huge hit, with the song How Far I'll Go appearing literally everywhere. Maui is, at least to me, the best pick in this movie with his hook and shape-shifting abilities. Rapunzel could also be very interesting with her long hair and frying pan. Finally, Ralph is literally from a video game in the movie, and he could even use abilities from other games for his moveset. Finally, we have a section that I skipped over last time, but now we can include here thanks to a bigger amount of characters. That's Disney TVA. Of course, we have to include Perry the Platypus, as Phineas and Ferb is probably the most popular among Disney shows. Gravity Falls is also very recognizable, and Bill Cipher is my pick for that show. Lastly, we have the DuckTales trio, who had both a series and a revival, not to mention that they're the nephews of Donald Duck, so we can have more Mickey Mouse characters that way. Pixar is next, again with lots of nicer characters. Since both Woody and Buzz were discussed last video, there isn't really much for Toy Story anymore, so I will be discussing about more singular movies. For these, I believe that great picks would be Linguini, controlled by Remy the Rat, who could use kitchen supplies or other rats to attack, Ian from Onward, who could use magic spells, Merida from Brave, Bing Bong or someone else from Inside Out, Miguel from Coco, Mei Mei from Turning Red, and lastly Carl from Up. Carl could be rather complicated due to his old age, but I suppose he could work by using his walker and companions such as Kevin. Besides, he did fight off against Charles during his movie. For the rest of the characters, I retract my earlier statement on the last video. Sorry 2004 kids. And we'll now be adding in both Lightning McQueen and Mater. Both of these characters are unique in their own way, and I feel like there is some way to add them. I'm also going to add a finding rep, just not a fish. My idea for this would be a character that can hold the fish, sort of like Remy the Rat and Linguini. Anyway, I feel like either Nigel or Hank would work, preferably Hank due to an octopus's movement options. These characters could carry the fish for them to attack, or even attack on their own. The final two that I'm gonna go with are Violet, who arguably has the most interesting powers among the Uncannies aside from Jack Jack, who's a baby, and also Randall from Monsters Inc., who could have an invisibility move similar to Meta Knight and Greninja in Smash. It's Marvel's turn, and I'm going back on my previous video again. I think Spider-Man could work somehow, just like how Smash Bros was able to secure the rights to many. Spider-Man could even use a lot of his moves from the game to promote them, so that's a plus. I'd also like to fill out the main Avengers, just like we did with the Fab Five. So Thor, Black Widow, and Hawkeye would fit nicely. The Guardians of the Galaxy is a very integral part of Marvel now, so I think that both Rocket and Groot would work well, with Rocket standing on Groot's shoulder. This brings forth both an iconic duo and a more diverse moveset to this fighting game. For the final two, I'd like to choose Doctor Strange and Loki, both characters that could offer amazing play experiences. For the Star Wars part, I'll be giving it up to my friend enemy rival, Bumpling. He hated every part of this.
What's up, Fortnite gamers? It's Bumpling from Bumpling. I'm here to do the Star Wars part because Lemmy doesn't know about Star Wars. Since this is the second part of the video, I can't use any characters from the previous part. Anyway, I think a solid first pick is Yoda. He's, besides Vader, the most popular character. Plus, fighting games usually have the silly little guys, so he's a necessity. Next, it might be a choice on the weirder side, but R2-D2, mainly due to the fact that if someone like Rob could be in Smash, he could do great in this. Next is one that might not even come close to most people's minds, Boba or Jango Fett. He'd work great as a character, especially with his mobility options, at least I think so. And then Darth Maul as a candidate is probably the best, seeing as how a double-bladed lightsaber could just be crazy for a moveset. Kylo Ren, I think, would be a good pick, mainly just because younger people know him more, because newer movies, and he's got a pretty cool lightsaber. I think that Chewbacca, because his bowcaster is really cool, and Mandalorian and Grogu are probably the current most popular Star Wars characters, no-brainer that they're added.
For the miscellaneous options, I'm gonna go with another Simpsons rep, as the show is extremely iconic. For this, I'm gonna go with Bart, who, like his dad, could use many of his silly items from the show, such as his slingshot. If they can slide it, I'd also really enjoy a Family Guy character, preferably Stewie. Sure, Peter is the Family Guy, but I feel as if Stewie's just as famous and more interesting altogether. Maybe Brian could also squeeze in as a duo. I also chose Kermit the Frog, and since the Peanuts movie is available on Disney+, Snoopy is gonna be chosen here. The final two miscellaneous characters are from video games, being Club Penguin and Sora, with Sora being there because it's funny because he's in Smash already. And with that, that's half the video done. I think Bumpling and I did a pretty good job at choosing these guys, with each of the characters being pretty different, recognizable, and interesting, from Oswald the Lucky Rabbit all the way to Stewie Griffin. Along with the characters from the previous video, all of these could combine to make this game a masterpiece. And hey, if you have any other characters you'd like, let me know in the comments. But before we move on to stages, this is your reminder that if you want to see more like this, please subscribe. If you'd like to support me even more, consider joining the Discord server. It's free, and it just had an awesome revamp, turning into an ocean. Like Nauticals, wow! Now it's on to the stages. For the stages, they will follow a similar format to my last Disney Smash video, with the Disney ones having 10, the Pixar ones having 5, both the Marvel and Star Wars each with 4, and 2 miscellaneous options. Disney has a really huge set of backgrounds with the amount of movies they have. For the first stage, Steamboat Willie is an obvious pick. I mean, it was the first Mickey Mouse cartoon to be released, a revolutionary moment for the company. Going with the classic theme, Oswald's trolley could also work, especially with Oswald being picked for this round. Since we have no Alice in Wonderland character chosen, a stage would likely fill in for it. Maybe this stage could shrink, along with exciting cameos. I also want to include Pride Rock, the Genie's Cave, the Beast Castle, Elsa's Castle, Cinderella Castle, and the Madrigal's House, all from popular movies. The Madrigal House could potentially work by alternating rooms every so often. The last two options that I want to go with are Doofenshmirtz's Lab from Phineas and Ferb for a TVA stage, and also Magic Kingdom from Disney World as a nod to that, or possibly just Space Mountain. Pixar's worlds, like Disney, also offer a wide range of stages to choose from. For a Toy Story stage, Andy's Room is an obvious pick, specifically the one for the first movie since that's where it started. The Door Factory from Monsters Inc. would also offer up an interesting layout, maybe using the doors to warp between places on the stage. For Finding Nemo, either the jellyfish scene or Crush's Back are some ideas for that film. As for the rest, I'm gonna go with the Axiom from WALL-E and the Island from The Incredibles. The Avengers Tower is going to be the first pick for Marvel. I'd also like to see Wakanda and Asgard, other important locations in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Lastly, we have a multiversal stage with Doctor Strange, because the multiverse is cool.
Alright guys, I'm back to go over the Star Wars part again. This time around, I'll be talking about the stages. So first on the list is Mustafar, specifically from when Obi-Wan and Anakin have their big fight at the end of the movie. Then I think a stage where you're jumping between X-Wing and the Death Star trenches, kind of like the Lilac Cruise from Brawl, would be kind of fun. Then I think it'd be funny to have Dexter's Diner, specifically from the Lego games, because it's nostalgic, or it's just funny. I think it's just funny. Lastly, I think it's too iconic not to have a stage where Luke and Vader had their first fight in Cloud City. Anyway, that's all I have.
For the final two miscellaneous stages, I'm going to go with Springfield and Club Penguin, with Springfield being used for The Simpsons and Club Penguin being a nod to another Disney game. I feel that each of these stages would be unique in their own right, especially thanks to the beautiful scenery that appeared in the background. Of course, they should also add a quote-unquote competitive stage, similar to Final Destination or Battlefield. Let me know if I missed anything. And it's finally finished. What if Disney had a Smash Bros. Part 2? I really hope you enjoyed this video, and here's another reminder to please subscribe and even consider joining the Discord. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Did any of your characters make it onto my list? How about sharing your list in the comments? I'm really thankful that you hopefully stayed through the entire video. Have a great day. I'm stalling for time, a little, because this is really short.